All right, so for today, what we ended up doing is we gave you, so Mrs. Othot and I, we gave you one more look at your reflections for your one pager. So let me get something really quickly. Sorry. All right, so this reflection that you guys have been working on, and I know this, we've been talking to you a lot about this, so I'm going to show this to you on my screen really quickly. So this is what we're talking about, this one pager reflection score sheet. So what we ended up doing is we gave you just one additional shot to just look at your responses. Based on this one, we did that brainstorming section with it. If you chose to redo that, you kind of redid that, either adding stuff in or maybe even just cross this out and start it again. So you can look at those previous lessons. So when you get back to school, make sure that you check in with Mrs. Othot or myself so you can, if you want to look at your scores, because some of them we do actually have them graded for a good chunk of them. We're not 100% done grading all of it, but if you want to take one last final look at it, you can, because we are not going to necessarily allow like you to redo just because we looked at it so many times. With that, okay? So you had this reading one with the one with mentor text where you had to go back to the actual mentor text and find specific examples on how those attributes were taught using those things. And then on the back, we had the writing one. How does understanding the attributes we learn in class help us as writers? And so on this one, what we're looking for is that you're naming the attributes, but then you're giving the reason on why it's important. You're not giving the definition necessarily because that's not why it's important. So you need to make sure that you're talking about why it's important. You do not have to reference mentor text here. You can, but you do not have to. Just explaining it, the importance of setting, the importance of having characters in a story. It's not the fact that, well, there's characters in the story, and if there weren't characters, we wouldn't have a story. That's not what we mean. What we mean is, why would you want to have characters in your story? What does that add to the story? Okay, so that's kind of what we're looking for there. Again, we have those ideas or the stems right there that you can use to help you. So when you get back to school, if you want to check those out to make sure that you're good to go with your responses, or even checking to see what your grade is on the actual one pager as well, to see if you want to redo anything in that sort of sense. That'll be the only time that we're going to let you do that, though. So just know that that is kind of what we did there. Okay? So you go to school, check in with us so that way you can check on your one pager and your reflections in the sense of what your score is. All right. The next thing that we ended up doing is we read a new mentor text, and this mentor text was just given to the class. The task is for you to read it, and you're going to annotate it based on all the things that we have learned about so far this year in reading and writing. You may find some that are not like things that we've learned in class. There may not be an example of that. So you're just going to read it, and you're going to annotate it. You're going to underline things. You're going to write things to the side. You're going to say, hey, that's contrast and contradiction, which is a fiction signpost. And so if that's the case, you can come up with some sort of key to put that in there for. So in the sense, like if you have contrast and contradiction, instead of writing that whole thing out, you can underline it and then put CC next to it for contrast, contradiction. Maybe you find a piece of figurative language. And so what you can do is you can underline that and say simile, or maybe something popped out in your mind, and like when you're reading it and going, oh, that's really funny. So you can put like a smiley face or haha. Because annotations, what that is I want to see you interacting with the text. I want you interacting and finding things that we've done in class, but then I also want you interacting with the text in the sense of, like, is it funny? Is it not funny? Does something like shock you? That kind of thing as well. So really what this is just for me to see what you do with word annotation. I want to know what you're going to annotate, how you're going to annotate. Things that we have looked at in class, because the kids had their notebooks, and I'll show you what you can look at as well. But they used their notebooks, and they went back to certain pages between 10 and 24, all the attributes that we've learned so far this quarter. Excuse me. And they actually went in and looked at what we did to annotate those texts for certain things, such as character or conflict or whatever it was. And so they were able to look at those annotations in order to help them understand how to maybe annotate this certain text. And I know you don't have your notebook with you, so I'm just going to show you really quickly. In Schoology, you'll be able to access this article, Adoption Ad. So the mentor text for me right now, this is right down here, Adoption Ad for Chihuahua. You're going to click on that, and then you're going to open up and you're going to read it. If you have access to a printer, you can print it. If you don't, you're going to make your annotations on just a scrap piece of paper. So if you find a simile, you'll write down simile and then write down what simile you found. Or if you find a connotated word, you'll find that word, you'll write it down and say this is negatively connotated, that kind of thing. So your annotations may look a little bit differently if you cannot print this individual page, which again, that link is right here. Okay. So anyways, all right. So if you are trying to figure out, hey, you know what, in this adoption ad, there actually is some conflict. You could actually click on this conflict one. It will take you back to the mentor text that we did conflict with. And you can kind of see how we annotated it and what we annotated it for. So you can see that. So up here we had man versus man, man versus tech. We just kind of went through a couple of things. Use Schoology, this mentor text section and the notes section, as kind of like your binder, or your notebook. Because your notebook has all this stuff in it. These all have the page numbers listed on there for you. These do not necessarily have that on there, but they have the different attributes that we learned in class. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so your job is to click on this adoption ad for Chihuahua, and you are going to read it. Again, if you have access to a printer, you can print it. That way the annotations, you're just taking paper and pencil on this actual sheet of paper. If you do not have access to a printer, that is okay. What I'm going to have you do is on a separate sheet of paper, as you're reading this, on a separate sheet of paper, you're going to jot down things that you see. So if you see that there is a word that's connotated, you're going to say connotation, maybe negative connotation, so negative connotation, and then you're going to give me that word that's negatively connotated. Maybe you find a simile. You're going to write the word simile, and you're going to write the simile. Okay? Maybe there's something, maybe there's like an aha moment. So you're going to write aha moment, and you can write down what that is. Okay? So you're just listing out things. So your annotations will look a little bit different just because it's not on the actual text, but you'll still be able to have this with you so you can see where that is. Okay? All right, so no matter how you end up doing it, if you have to do it on notebook paper, that's fine. Or if you actually can print out the text and you can do it from there, that's great too. But either way, you need to take a picture of your annotations, either on the actual text or on a piece of notebook paper. Take a picture of it and send it to me so I know that you did it. And then when you get back to school, you'll make sure to bring it and we'll put it in your notebook along with the adoption ad if you were not able to print it. Okay, so make sure you have that up. Because this adoption ad we're going to use next time in class as well. So make sure you have read it and you have made those annotations because the activity we're going to do next class is you're going to have that needed. And this is actually going to be part of a grade, your annotations. Okay. So again, either way, if you print it and annotate it like we normally do, great. If you don't have access to a printer, you're getting your scratch piece of paper and you're going to write on there. Again, just finding different things that we've done in class, using Schoology as your notebook, in the sense of you're looking at the mentor text section and the notes section, and you can click on those links and it'll take you to what is in your notebook. Okay? All right. So I'm looking for a picture from you, so make sure you send that to me so you can get that score, and then make sure you bring it back to class. And then the last thing is that when you get back to class, make sure that you get in touch with me or Mrs. Othout, and we'll kind of go over this if you need to go over your reflection for your one-pager. And just kind of seeing that score. Okay, that's all I have. I'm looking for a picture from you, so make sure again you take a picture of however you did your annotations for the adoption ad. All right, thanks.